Washington, D.C. community. This is Robert from Block's Sonic Wafers, and I'm here to put together an entry for Robert Zee's lottery contest, which I heard about from our friend the HappyHippy, and wanted to give him a shout out. I'm really enjoying his channel, and he's in my part of the world, so to speak. And anyway, this intrigued me, and it also overwhelmed me in a way. I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. I was gifted with a glitch in my brain at a very young age, and it led to learning disabilities that went unrecognized, and it has affected me in certain ways throughout my entire life. And I'm not telling you that as a woe is me tale, but it's factual, and it affects my ability to see a big picture. When I put together a narrative or a story about me, it all lines up perfectly in my head, but when it comes time to spill it out, that all falls apart. So this will probably come out in parts and pieces and dribs and drabs. I'll do the best that I can. I was born at a very young age. Uh, I started out right here in East Tennessee. Actually, I'm in Virginia as we speak, but I'm only a few feet from East Tennessee. Uh, started my interest in music started at a very young age. Like most people, I started out with the Disney records and all of the kids stuff. But I started getting interested in music I heard on television. Uh, and I was also fortunate to have uh, different musical experiences in my family. My mother played the organ, and she was the organist for her church. But mostly she, because my father wasn't that interested in music, but we had a big Magnavox console stereo, like a lot of families did back in those days. And my mom listened to uh, a lot of show tunes, a lot of Henry Mancini, Ferrante and Teicher, if I'm saying that correctly. Uh, but they had a lot of movie soundtracks too. I remember we had the Mikado. We had the King and I. We had My Fair Lady. Uh, what was the one with Zero Mostel? If I Were a Rich Man. I can't think of the name of it at the moment. But those soundtracks uh, seeped into me through osmosis, uh, and I'm grateful for that. It's also like most of us, unbeknownst to ourselves at the time, became familiar with a lot of classical music through Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny, boy, he was tricky about that. He snuck that classical music right into our repertoire without our knowledge. and I'm grateful for that today. So, my mom listened to that type of music. My eldest sister, she came along and was in the age of Joan Baez, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and that type of music. So again, through osmosis, I absorbed some of that, whether I knew it or not. I'm grateful for that. And then there was my brother, who's no longer with us, and he was the big Elvis fan. And so there's, other music surrounding that period that I absorbed through osmosis. And then there was my closest sister, who was the big Beatles fan before I was, but I was right there beside her and picked up on that. And that's where my journey began. So, I'm grateful for all of the groundwork that was laid for me with all of the people around me. And of course, I started watching Paul Revere and the Raiders in the afternoons with their program Where the Action Is, and couldn't wait to get home from school and see that. And then the Monkees came on, and I was already into the Beatles. I did not know what FM radio was, and I remember one night in 1968 where I was laying in my bed and I had a clock radio in one of the console positions of the head of my bed. And one night I decided I was going to flip that switch and see what FM was, because I had no idea. And so I was getting ready to drift off to sleep, and I flipped that button, and the DJ, right at that moment, started a record that changed my musical life, and it was Procol Harum, Inhaled 'Twas in I. 17, 18-minute piece. Nothing I was ever familiar with at that time, and it blew my little mind when I learned that there were songs longer than 3 minutes. So that got me interested in exploring into deeper music. And in those days, FM radio was real radio. Those guys could play what they wanted. They'd go for deep cuts, and they did. They would play whole albums at midnight sometimes, and they would play stuff that I just never would have heard of otherwise. And that was kind of our only source for that kind of information back in those days. There was no internet. If Goldmine magazine was around, I didn't know about it at that time. So it was a little later when I discovered that, and that was my internet for a little while as far as records are concerned. So my whole collecting philosophy is discombobulated. It's been different throughout my life. There was a period where I worked in the mall in a cafeteria, Piccadilly cafeteria, if you're familiar with it. So I was just downstairs from the Record Bar, which was a chain, of course. We didn't have a whole lot of record stores in my town, but we had a few. But I got to know the guys at the record bar up there, and every payday I would head up to the record bar and get 4 to 6 albums. And those guys always gave me some discount because I was buying so much stuff from them. And that was a great situation there for a good long time. And then eventually corporate stepped in and said, you can't do that anymore. Uh, but, I've always enjoyed the hunt. And when I know of a record and can't find it, that's really the most interesting part of being a record collector. One album that I've already talked about in a video was Cat Stevens Live in Japan, Saturday Night it's called. And it took me 10 years to find a copy of that record, and I finally found my first copy through the gold mine. Uh, and it's a great record. I guess it was released in Japan only, but my radio station played the whole album at midnight one time, and that's what started my search, and nobody had it. And so I finally did get a copy. It's a great album. As far as taking care of my records, the sleeving and such, I'm not consistent in that so far because there's been so many chapters in my life where I was able to work at that and chapters where I wasn't. Uh, I know, Robert, you talked about your early collection that you got rid of and then started fresh. I didn't get rid of my early collection, so I've still got all those records from those early days, and some of them aren't mint minus. Uh, some of them are very good, and there's a few that are worse than that. And then I've got my later collection, so I kind of divide the collection between then and later. And the later collection I take better care of. I do try to put them in 3mm sleeves. I have a lot of them in uh, the audiophile inner sleeves, but a lot of them that I haven't been able to get caught up with at this point. And as you'll see by my video of my record room, it's kind of a mess. I don't have anything alphabetized anymore, pretty much, except for my big rack of CDs, and there's a reason for that as well. In the last few years, I've had some major upheaval in my life. I lost a business. I lost a house. I had to move down from the bigger house that I was in into this apartment that I'm in now, and the results of that is a huge portion of my record collection is in storage. Uh, it is in a temperature controlled storage situation, but there's about 10 or 11 crates of records over there. Every now and again I'll go over there and just grab a handful, but the problem is storage room in this apartment is very limited, and that's why you will also see I've got a bunch of records on the floor. I've got a bunch of CDs on the floor upstairs. Uh, so that will probably uh, make Robert psychotic over the situation with my collection. But anyway, I've got a rack that you'll see in my video that's primarily surround sound, and my deluxe editions are in that rack. I've got like 4 racks of CDs besides this huge rack behind me, and that's 800 and some right there. Uh, so I've always loved collecting. I've always loved music. I love getting out and seeing music when I can, and I've got quite a history and quite a list of shows I've seen. There's also a list of people I wish I'd seen. I'm a big Frank Zappa fan, and I never saw him in concert, to my regret. Same with Stevie Ray Vaughan. I had the opportunity to see both of them and missed them. And I'm sure everybody's got a list of shows they wish they had seen. Uh, so this day and time, I'm currently uh, living with a limited income. I'm not working for health reasons at this time. Plus, I'm at retirement age, uh, but I'm retiring poor. What I'm trying to do currently is once a month grabbing hold of a box set. I love box sets, and unfortunately, uh, I gravitate towards the CD box sets because I'm a big fan of surround sound, and those surround sound discs are kind of the primary prize in the box sets as far as I'm concerned, and that's just me. It probably not true for a lot of folks, but also like Robert, I'm interested in promo copies and advance copies and special copies, and here's a few of those. And these are artists that aren't huge, but ought to be. Uh, Scott Miller in the Commonwealth, he did a special pressing, basically demo sessions, and there's artists that do this to raise the money to make their next studio album, and that's what this was about. Scott Miller's Appalachian Refugee demo sessions. I've got number 99. I'm not sure exactly how many he pressed of this, but it's valuable to me. And then I did some street team work for Sugar Hill Records and Lost Highway Records. This is an advanced copy of Sam Bush's live album, The Peaks of Telluride. It's just got the advanced CD for promotion only, information on it, no cover art. And then a band I love called Daddy. This was a little CD they put out to raise money for their next CD, and each and every one of them has custom artwork by Tommy Womack. Y'all might recognize that as a character from Mad Magazine, but that's Tommy's version. Signed by Tommy Womack and Will Kimbrough. Live at Norm's. And this is a more official limited edition Daddy disc. This is number 112 out of 200. And it's Will Kimbrough, Tommy Womack, John Dedrick, and Paul Griffith, and Dave Jacques. So I love promos. I've got a lot of promo singles, and I'll need to break them down and do a video about them at some point. So here's a quick little rundown of my current listening system. I do have a rack system, but it's in storage with my records. It consists of Sansui and Pioneer, and it even has a standalone CD burner. But I have basically pared it down to an audio video receiver for my television. I've got two 3-way Pioneer speakers for the fronts. For the center speaker, I've got a KLH. Does a very nice job. They are CSK 535s. They were given to me by my nephew. There's my flute player. Down here we have a Sony audio video receiver on the bottom. Next we have an Oppo universal player, which will play SACD as well as DVD audio. And above that we have a Toshiba Blu-ray for my high fidelity Blu-rays. Pardon the mess. There's my violin player. Back, I have a pair of AT-12 Sherwin Vegas that have been with me for over 30 years. I have refoamed them. They're good for another 20 years. Again, pardon the mess. I decided if I were going to clean up before I made this video, the video probably wouldn't get made. The old sturdy Pioneer PL630. It's not a Crosley, but it's not top of the line either. It got very good reviews in its day when it came out in, I think, around 79. This one has served me since about 85 and has served me well. I have replaced the stylus a few times, but other than that, it's been a good soldier. And I hope nothing happens to it, because I can't afford to replace it at this time. Hiding in the corner next to Bebop Deluxe, I have the Sony subwoofer that came with the AV receiver. It also performs very well. So it's not top of the line system, but it sounds fantastic, and I'm happy with it. It took me a long time to get to this point, and so I enjoy the music thoroughly. And that's it for the system tour. Thank you. As far as cleaning records goes, I'm kind of old school in that regard. I have relatives that are in the commercial audio business, and by that I mean sports arenas, churches, big audio jobs like that. But my uncle told me many years ago to wash records in the sink. And that's what I still do today. I have improved upon it, with my mixture of cleaning solution, the micro cloth, and, the lint-free cloths that I dry with. But I have found that to work well for me, and I can't really see going to any other method, especially the real expensive ones, which probably do a great job, but just not in my financial future at this time. So with that, I'm going to wrap this thing up. And, I hope I haven't scared Robert Zee off from letting me be in his contest. Uh, and I hope the rest of you that might view this video, in spite of my story, will subscribe and hit the like button and the bell button and the whatever else other buttons there are, and put a record on, and I'll see you on the other side.